on migration on AWS. So 20 minutes, it's very short. So we'll take only 5 takeaways for you after this session to really masterize good migration to AWS. First, one thing you need really to strengthen in your program moving to the cloud is why are you moving to the cloud, to AWS? And then define your business outcomes. First, one thing is that migrating to AWS is not something that is meant only for big companies or small companies, digital natives or not. You can consider the migration in any case. In terms of business outcome, of course, operational efficiency is one of the things that you can really seek to improve moving in the cloud. So maybe today it takes you weeks or even months to create a new infrastructure, to create a new server. And now, moving to the cloud and really relying on automation, it could be a question of minutes to have a new infrastructure. So meaning that for your projects, for your business applications, the speed is really not going to be the same. In terms of operational efficiency, you can also seek to decrease the cost of your infrastructure. That's really one point where relying on elasticity mechanism, you can decrease the global cost of your infra. ESG, so there was a speech 1 hour before on sustainability. 2 kinds of things where you can improve sustainability. Of course, you can develop your own applications that will deal with making you more efficient in terms of energy and so on, relying on AWS services. But also what you need to consider, it was said before, is that even AWS cloud infrastructure is 5 times more energy efficient than the average data center in Europe. So moving to the cloud is already one way for you to reduce your carbon footprint. The third point is to grow your revenue. So in case your business is growing really fast and you need to increase in a really rapid manner your infrastructure, you can scale up really more rapidly. And also you can go from local to global. You can rely on an infrastructure with 31 regions, 99 availability zones, and 450 points of presence around the world. So if you want to go local to global, it's a matter of clicks, and then you deploy your application in a really global manner with the same quality of service. Also, moving to the cloud, you can really run some specific workloads. I gave the example of StoreNG. So StoreNG is part of NG Group. And to perform geoscientific calculation, where they need really to have a high level of compute performance, moving to AWS, they were able, relying on our chipset, to improve their performance by 2.5 in terms of time to execute their calculation. So they were able to speed up the service. Reduce the business risk. So you understand, if your business is growing, if your activity is growing with elasticity, you can scale up in a really fast manner. But in the other way around, if your business is decreasing, if you need to reduce, then you can also reduce your infrastructure automatically. It means that you take less risk in investing in a large infrastructure, going to the cloud in comparison with on-premise, for example. So the second thing among the 5, remember, is make it an enterprise program. And just one quote from Andy Jassy, who is the CEO of Amazon, is that the difficulty you are going to have, or the challenge you are going to have moving to the cloud is not technical. It's really to make it an enterprise program, to really have a strong support from your leadership, and then to have this program in a top-bottom approach, meaning everyone is onboarded and is going in this direction. Because when you look at migrating to the cloud, you can think, okay, this kind of project, it concerns my IT security, cyber security, IT compliance, IT delivery, operations, and FinOps team. and it is their business. It's not concerning me if I am part of the business or if I am an application owner. But consider it much more larger in your company. When you think at the business outcome we just discussed before, of course, the application owner, it will be really interested in being able to make much more releases per year, being more agile, being able to scale up, to develop the service worldwide. Innovation and digital team, maybe before they were reluctant to go in some directions because it was really risky and they had to invest a lot. We are talking a lot on generative AI, and you know that to train or to perform inference on generative AI, you need to have an infrastructure, underlying infrastructure is quite huge. So the entry ticket is quite huge. With the cloud, it's not the same paradigm. In fact, you can try, you can test, you can learn, step in, step back, and try your new business. So the risk is less elevated for them, and it will speed up innovation. And of course, the businesses, they benefit from all these areas to really develop their solutions, to go more digital, and develop at scale. So we know why we are migrating, and we have the support from the management. But before we migrate everything to the cloud, there is a phase which is important, is to know where you are today. So that's very important. So in the assessment, how well do you know your IT portfolio? So maybe your IT portfolio is a small number of business applications, or maybe you run thousands of applications in global data centers. So maybe your CMDB, so your CMDB, it is the list of servers you have linked to your applications, is fully automated, and you have a clear view on all the applications and all the servers you are running. So that will be perfect. Or maybe your CMDB is splitted across different tools, different Excel files in the company which are not automated, sometimes manually, and you do not really know what you need to migrate your business application. One second aspect in the portfolio assessment is linked to the licensing. This one is very important because on-premise, maybe you are running applications, software, with licenses, and those licenses are maybe linked to your host, maybe linked to the number of CPU, maybe linked to a MAC address, and then moving to the cloud, you need to anticipate how those licenses will be applicable in the cloud. And one last thing in the assessment of your portfolio is try to assess your technical debt. What are the versions of the software you are running? Are you really running late? And moving to AWS can be really the good occasion to reduce or kill your technical debt. Then once you have done that, you have to define for your applications what is going to be your migration strategy. So moving to the cloud, it's like moving from one old apartment to another apartment. So sometimes you want to leave stuff behind. You are not going to move them. Sometimes you just lift and shift things. You move from your old apartment to the new, but you don't touch exactly the same. Or maybe you want something much more modern. So that's more or less the same, migrating your applications. We have a framework we call the 7R, and each R is meant for one strategy of migration you can have. So one R for retire, for example. So retire, I am not going to move it. Rehost. And defining this strategy, you will also define the way you will use advanced AWS services, going much more to managed services, going much more to containers, to microservices. So the effort to migrate is not going to be the same. Lift and shift or refactoring an application, it's not the same job. But at the end, the value you get is not the same. You want more agility. You want to reduce your cost because you have an application where the usage is not constant in time. So be clear on what are the expected business outcomes, and you will be clear on your migration strategy as well. So we talked a lot on the application and the technical stuff and the licenses. But apart from that, you need to consider also how your own organization is prepared. So just before the session, you saw there was some information on the training. Of course, you need to train the people who are going to build and run the application in the cloud. It's really the occasion for you to attract the talents, to retain the talents in your company also, going through the training plan you can have in AWS. The second thing in terms of organization is your operational processes. So going to the cloud for you, it will be really a way to much more automate, and then you will need to adapt your operational processes. In fact, you will kill some administrative tasks or repetitive tasks you have today, and the people, they will much more focus on, okay, what are the value I can bring to the company, and not spending my time redoing every time the same things or reconfiguring the same kind of server 10 times a day. So training, processes, and the last thing you can consider migrating to the cloud, and depending on the size of your company, is how you are going to use and to have a governance of the services you use in AWS. There are more than 200 services provided by AWS. So it's really cool. It's a lot. So at one point, you may consider, okay, but what am I going to do? Am I going to use the 200? Am I able to do that? At a certain time, you may consider organizing your team and organizing what we call a CCOE. It's a Cloud Center of Excellence. And globally, the CCOE will be your internal team responsible for defining the governance and the usage of cloud services. And it's really key for you to have some common patterns across the team. If you want to decrease, for example, your operational cost, the cost of your IT service management, it's really key to anticipate that. And then before you start migrating the workloads, do not wait the program to be ended to define your success criteria. This phase has to be done at the beginning. Sometimes it's not the case. So you need to be clear on your expectation with your management. And you need to set up KPIs measurable, and you will measure them during the migration. If you have the good KPIs, if you track them during the migration, so KPIs could be linked to how many, for business application, how many releases do I make a year? What is the total cost of ownership for another business application, and so on and so on. The data and being data-driven cannot be discussed by other people. So it will be really strong in your communication if you have the good KPI and if you are data-driven. So we know what we want to do. We know our strategy. So now let's migrate the workloads, but we can accelerate in the migration. And how do we accelerate? So I told you about the CCOE, about defining migration patterns. And this is one way for you to accelerate. If you standardize, if you have clear migration patterns, you won't ask yourself questions. Okay, for this kind of database, what will be my target design? It's already defined. And then when it's defined, you can really automate, you can leverage on infrastructure as a code services to really speed up the creation of your assets in AWS. Same for migrating the data. You can rely on automated services that will migrate your data from on-premise to the cloud. And of course, automation, you have to do it with the good team. So no need to have 50 people in a team to perform a migration. So often we say we need 1 or 2 pizza team. 1 or 2 pizza is enough to feed the team when they are coding. So this kind of small teams, cross-functional, people knowing to code, people knowing about the network, about the system, is enough to perform a large migration. No need to have more. And if you do not have those kind of skills internally in terms of defining who is going to perform the migration, you see today in VivaTech, AWS has a large ecosystem of partners. So we call them partners, and they are really there to help us to scale and to help you in your migration in your projects. Apart from the partner internally, so within AWS, we also have some teams which can help you perform the migration. So professional services, you will hear the name, it's called ProServe. And they will help you scale your program. And the last thing, which is something which is not always, I would say, considered as a major topic, but it's really key in the large migration project, is to communicate to your customer. So sometimes it's really seen as administrative, but you see that a successful migration is onboarding business application owners, your business, people from innovation, people from IT. So in large company or in small company, the audience is quite large. You need a strong leadership. You need to communicate on your success. You need to communicate based on the KPI you have defined and the success criteria you have defined in your program. For you, it will be really the way to onboard people, because one of the challenges you will have performing those kind of migration is much more linked to the culture changes, because you will have some people in your IT for whom the job is really going to change in AWS. But they need to get really the value of what will be their new job working with this kind of technology. So that's it for today. I hope it was clear. So you have the 5 takeaways, normally less than 20 minutes. And if you have any question, I will be there on the AWS stand. So thanks for attending, and maybe see you later.